Mr. Trump must not be missing. He also helps in various ways to establish the mark of the beast in his country. So says Revelation 13. He also promotes Charlie Kirk's book on his Truth Social platform. But it's no problem for him to promote this book, because if you read carefully, the following comes to light. On the website sabbathtruth.com, they dealt with the book and found the following. The author reports, Kirk says, "My purpose in writing is to urge the world, people of all faiths and backgrounds, to stop for one day." And although he personally kept the Sabbath from Friday evening to Saturday evening, he admits, "I don't think the specific day, Saturday or Sunday, is of primary importance, and I do not believe disobeying Sabbath in the legal sense is a sin for Christians under grace." You already see that the official book version clearly leaves both days as options, and even claims that it is not a sin to replace the true Sabbath with Sunday. Let's read on. He continues, "So whether you keep the Sabbath on Saturday, honor the Lord's Day on Sunday, or practice daily rhythms of intentional rest and worship, do not abandon the principle." Kirk confessed to sometimes working on Sabbath, saying, "If I have to work on Saturday, I take Sunday as my Sabbath." Kirk's advice is to think of Sabbath not as an all-or-nothing practice, but as a rhythm of renewal you fiercely prioritize. Okay, you heard for yourself what the message of this book is. Here is the link to the website so you can convince yourselves. But it is completely clear that with these statements in the book, no one will accept the true Sabbath. One paragraph in the book is still extremely revealing. A national cultural rhythm. At the end of his book, Kirk writes, "Imagine if America began to honor the Sabbath again, not merely as a personal spiritual practice, but as a national cultural rhythm. Picture Saturday, or Sundays, once again becoming a time of collective pause. Our frayed, fractured society would begin to knit itself back together, not through government programs or corporate initiatives, but through God's design. One day in 7 set apart for healing, remembering, and being human again. The Sabbath would become not just a private act of worship, but a public act of restoration." Wow, I would say that is exactly the Heritage Foundation's proposal. Exactly the same words, the same idea. Who copied from whom? Who inspired whom? Or is it all part of the great plan to close the chain in Paul's signet in 2026? You know the answer. One short postscript. It is not exactly known whether the book manuscript was subsequently improved by Erica or someone else, or not. There are rumors about it, anyway. The fact is, however, that this book, in its official version, will not move anyone to keep the Sabbath, but people will obediently go to church on Sunday according to tradition, because of Charlie, of course. He wrote it that way in the book, or allowed it. And so, America will apparently be saved. So people think, including the family. But in God's eyes, it's a lost nation. Now there should be no more doubt about what you should do. Leave Babylon immediately. Show fear of God and keep His unchanging 10 commandments, including the true seventh-day Sabbath. At this point, allow me one final comment. This coming Sunday law is therefore the last of the 3 end-time tests. The establishment of the mark of the beast, mandatory Sunday sacredness. What were the previous tests? First came the LGBT image of the beast. Same-sex marriage was introduced in the USA in 2015 by Obama, and then spread to a large part of the world. Even today, this attack is felt on true marriage between man and woman, and thus on the true family. The second test was the mRNA vaccine attack during the COVID pandemic. This serum changed the DNA created by God, which can be represented as a long number. That was the number of the beast, which unfortunately was injected into many deceived people. And now we see the push of the third and last test, the mark of the beast, which will come to a head in the question of the Sabbath versus Sunday. Those who wish can read this article. Here is the QR code for it. Here you will find very, very great information about it. A complete reformation in the Middle Ages in Luther's time failed because applying sola scriptura consistently would also have demanded the sanctification of the seventh day, the Sabbath. This breach in the wall was closed by the early Adventist Church when they began to keep the Sabbath again in 1846. But then this Adventist Church departed from the straight path, and many false teachings entered, leading to a 120-year wilderness wandering that was supposed to end in 2010. Elijah came in 2010 and publicly proclaimed the Orion message to them, which should have moved this church to repentance, contrition, and conversion. But unfortunately, that did not happen. Therefore, God prepared a remnant from this once fruitful church that should successfully complete the Reformation that once began. Therefore, it was and is more necessary now than ever to hold God's banner high and to keep all God's commandments. The last of the 7 blessings in Revelation reads, "Blessed are they that do His commandments, that they may have right to the tree of life, and may enter in through the gates into the city." Revelation 22:14. I hope this first current topic has been understood. And with this heavenly confirmation of the seal on the forehead of Capricornus, we jump straight to the next fulfillment that happened before our eyes. It's about the topic of Greenland. As you know, Trump, who is the destroyer named Abaddon and Apollyon, wants to annex Greenland. First with military force, then by it, then with a deal, then with bribery of the locals. The latest news on this topic converged at Davos during the most recent World Economic Forum meeting in January 2026. Here is the BBC headline. What we know about Trump's framework of future deal over Greenland. The article continues. What has been said about the framework deal? President Trump made the announcement after talks at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. Based upon a very productive meeting that I have had with the Secretary General of NATO, Mark Rutte, we have formed the framework of a future deal with respect to Greenland, he said on his Truth social media platform. He did not give details, but said talks would continue to reach the agreement. After all the previous threats, this news came as quite a surprise to everyone. Here you see the original post again on Truth Social from January 21, 2026. And on the right is a news report showing how surprising this post from Trump was. Let's read. Details of the arrangement are yet to emerge. The only thing I know is the announcement that was made yesterday, Alvarez said, the Spanish foreign minister. I talked to the ministers of foreign affairs of all those allied countries, and they have the same information as I. Just the announcement. So this was a surprise attack by Trump, who made a bilateral agreement with NATO Secretary General Rutte without the NATO members knowing. In which time frame presented by Brother John does this Greenland story fit? In the video, The Last Car, Brother John presented the time frame for the fall of Babylon from Revelation 18, that is, the 3 hours in which the kings of the earth, the merchants, and finally the captains lament over the fall of Babylon. Anyone who hasn't seen the video yet should watch it. Here is the QR code, but briefly for a refresher. In the video, it's shown how it's possible that from the 7th plague, in which we have been since January 3, 2026, and in which God remembers Babylon, the 3 hours of Babylon's fall can be arranged until March 16, 2026. Don't forget, Three-Eye Atlas met the lightning that shines from east to west on the same day, that is, the comet C2020 F7, Lemon. All this has been sufficiently presented in the newer videos. And the assumption was that from January 3, 2026, the Sun activates 3 constellations and thus indicates the 3 hours in the Mazzaroth. The Sun is the hour hand, because there are 12 constellations in the Mazzaroth, and the Moon is the minute hand. After the Venezuelan president Maduro and his wife were brought out of the country by the USA in a special operation on January 3, the Greenland topic came back into the press. In the timeline, you see that this falls into the 1st hour of Babylon's fall. And at the end of the 1st hour came the deal in Davos. Let's check whether the biblical text matches the heavens. Let's read from Revelation 18, verses 9 and 10. And the kings of the earth who have committed fornication